What's up, everybody? Ryan Lockett here. I'm a business banker, and welcome to the channel, Banking on Biblical Principles. So, in the video today, we are going to unpack how and why poor management decisions will ultimately usually keep a business from getting funding. And we're going to look at it through business principles. So let's dive into it. Let's start with an idea here, and it's really coming from a biblical quote, Jeremiah 22:13-14. Woe to him who builds his palace by unrighteousness, his upper rooms by injustice, making his own people work for nothing, not paying them for their labor. Now already, that sounds like a horrible work experience. I don't know anybody who actually wants to work for that person. Problem is, a lot of top-line management make selfish decisions or poor decisions because they're not focused on the people that they're actually working for, which are their clients as well as their employees. So we're going to look at some principles from the Bible today, and we're going to do it through a story. The story is of King Rehoboam. All right? Rehoboam, he's the son of King Solomon, and he's the grandson of the infamous King David. Now, Rehoboam is known for the calamity that he brings on the nation of Israel because of his very poor decision making. And so we see this. This is in 1 Kings chapter 12. And so to set it up, what happens is he's succeeding his father, Solomon, and going into the chapter, the people are looking for something from him. They're basically looking for him to provide what they need. Now, when we're going into business, we have to understand that the purpose of business is service. And there's no better quote that I can think of than from Rabbi Daniel Lapin, from his book, Business Secrets from the Bible, Spiritual Success Strategies for Financial Abundance. And he says, work is not about doing what you want. Work is about serving others. Again, work is not about doing what you want or what you want to do. It's about serving others. And in business, the principle is very clear. You go into business to serve others. And if you're working from selfish ambitions solely and not looking to serve others, there are going to be problems. So let's get into the text. 1 Kings chapter 12, verse 1. Rehoboam went to Shechem, for all Israel had gone there to make him king. When Jeroboam, son of Nebat, heard this, as he was still in Egypt, where he had fled from King Solomon, he returned from Egypt. So they sent for Jeroboam, and he and the whole assembly of Israel went to Rehoboam and said to him, "Your father put a heavy yoke on us, but now lighten the harsh labor and the heavy yoke he put on us, and we will serve you." So his people came to him and made a declaration. They said, "Your father was hard on us, but if you will lighten the load and make some adjustments, we will be unified under you." Understand that one of the biggest problems we can create in the funding process when you're seeking funding for your business is if you have either high turnover or some sort of turmoil within your company. Why? Because that can lead to a very poor client experience. That can lead to very poor perceived return on investment of your company. That can lead to just a bad reputation publicly. All these things are very bad for funding, okay? So the people come and they say to Rehoboam, "Hey, you're king now. Here's what you can do to make it better." Verse 5, Rehoboam answered, "Go away for 3 days and then come back to me." So the people went away. Then King Rehoboam consulted the elders who had served his father Solomon during his lifetime. Okay, so he goes to trusted elders and he asks them, "How would you advise me to answer these people?" They replied, "If today you will be a servant to these people and serve them and give them a favorable answer, they will always be your servants." So this is really kind of like a formula here. If you will serve the people, they will serve you. So if you floated around the Bible space at all, other principles may come to mind, like the idea of loving others, and it creates a loving environment, or doing unto others to have them actually do the same good unto you. So what you put out is what you're going to get back. So the elders advise him, they say, if you will be a servant to your people and serve them and give them a favorable answer, they will always be your servants. Note this, but Rehoboam rejected the advice the elders gave him, and he consulted the young men who had grown up with him and were serving him. Okay, so let's look at this. He gets advice from trusted, experienced counsel, people who have been there, done that, read the book, probably have the t-shirt, okay? And he's like, I'm good. And he goes and asks his friends who know just as little as he does. And he says, what do you think? I asked the people who have actually been in the game, have actually been doing it, and have gone through these experiences. I didn't like what they had to say. What do you people think who haven't done any of this yet? So he asked his friends. He said, what is your advice? How should we answer these people who say to me, lighten the yoke your father put on us? The young men who had grown up with him replied, these people have said to you, your father put a heavy yoke on us, but make our yoke lighter. Now tell them, my little finger is thicker than my father's waist. My father laid a heavy yoke on you. I will make it even heavier. My father scourged you with whips. I will scourge you with scorpions. I'm sorry, what? Like, in what universe does that even sound like that's good advice? So problem here is there are people who are actually in top line management who get bad advice from other people who don't know what they're talking about. And then, as if that advice was actually good, they act upon it. So if you're not seeking good counsel, how are you supposed to make good decisions? If you're not going to people who have experience in your industry, experience in building the same kind of business, experience in getting funding, okay, getting capital. If you're not talking to people who have done it and know what they're talking about, and you go ask the people who don't know what they're talking about, how do you ever expect a good outcome? So he goes to the elders, they give him good advice. He's like, next. He goes to his friends who don't know anything, and they give him horrible advice. And this is what happens. 3 days later, Jeroboam and all the people returned to Rehoboam. As the king had said, come back to me in 3 days. The king answered the people harshly, rejecting the advice given him by the elders. He followed the advice of the young men, not the old men who knew what they were talking about, but the young men. And he said, my father made your yoke heavy. I will make it even heavier. My father scourged you with whips. I will scourge you with scorpions. I didn't even know people did that. So the king did not listen to the people, for this turn of events was from the Lord. Understand, he didn't listen to the people. And so God had already planned to turn him over to his bad decisions. When we set ourselves on making bad decisions, God will not stop us from reaping what we have sown. And so he chooses the poor decision. He chooses the bad counsel. He does not listen to the people he's leading. He's like a little kid walking around, la, 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 I don't know what you're saying. Understand that when you lead a company that way, when you lead a business that way, you are leading it into destruction. And a business has to be a good investment to get funding. Whether that's bank lending, whether that's investors who want equity, nobody wants to inject capital into a business that is run poorly. No one wants to inject capital into a business where the top line leadership doesn't listen, doesn't seek wise counsel, doesn't make good decisions. So what happens? Go to verse 16. When all Israel saw that the king refused to listen to them, they answered the king, "What share do we have in David? What part in Jesse's son? To your tents, Israel. Look after your own house, David." This is the nation of Israel essentially saying, the king's not listening to us, we won't listen to him. So he had the opportunity to unite the nation, but instead he chooses bad counsel, bad advice, and ultimately poor decisions, and this fractures the nation. He had the opportunity to get the support and bring everyone together, but instead, because he chose not to listen, because he chose poor decision making and not seeking wise counsel, he drove them away. So the Israelites went home, but as for the Israelites who were living in the towns of Judah, Rehoboam still ruled over them. Now look at this, verse 18. King Rehoboam sent out one of his agents, okay? He sent out one of his agents who was in charge of forced labor so that he could go and force the people to do what he needed them to do. Understand, if you're actually listening to your people, why would you even need forced labor to begin with? Okay? He wasn't listening to his people. He was trying to rule in a fashion that wasn't going to work. And so he sent out one of his agents, and what happened? Israel stoned him to death. See the domino effect of poor decision making. So then the king, he manages to get out and escape, barely gets out of Jerusalem. But Israel ends up being in rebellion for the rest of history. He could have united the nation, but instead he caused a catastrophic ripple effect that would last indefinitely, because he sought poor counsel, he made bad decisions, he made selfish decisions, he was not thinking about his people, he did not have a heart of service. What's our takeaway? Our takeaway is, when we run our companies poorly with selfish ambitions, we're not thinking about our people, we're not in it to serve, it directly impacts your ability to get funding, to get capital. Why? Because it directly impacts the quality of your business. You do not have a quality business that is a good investment for a bank or anyone to look at and say, I'm going to put money into this organization. Why? Because you run it selfishly. You run it for your own ambitions. You are not seeking to serve. So the moral of the story here is, seek wise counsel. Seek to serve. And when we seek to serve our clients and our employees, we will run better businesses that will ultimately be great investments for anyone who wants to inject capital and provide funding. Hope this blessed you. Hope it was great for you. Until next time, my name is Ryan Lockett. Your funding awaits. If this video helped you, please share it. Let's get the word out, because let's collectively build better businesses and build better communities. See you later.